Now back to today's talker, priests accused of sexually molesting children in their care. You know, this story is sadly familiar, but this sickening case in Philadelphia is a bit different. It could actually set a precedent in the way these cases are prosecuted. We've got Seth Williams on the phone with this. He's the district attorney in Philadelphia. And Mr. Williams, you've told any victims to come to your office first and not go to the archdiocese. And I think it's tremendously sad that you can't even trust the church to police itself.
Well, I think it's only appropriate that victims, of course, know that they don't have to go to the perpetrator. There's no other type of crime where we expect victims to go to the perpetrator and to hope that the perpetrator will conduct an investigation and then self-report. So we hope the church will do the right thing. We hope, of course, the church will provide counseling to the victims and that they will do what they need to do to police the priest. But victims need to know that they have to report sexual abuse of children.
Yeah, well, it's hard to have faith in the church when you see story after story come forward, Seth, and then see that the men assigned to investigate these cases are actually shuffling all of this under the carpet. I want to get back to some of the grand jury's report here and ask you specifically about some questions. And I just want to let our viewers know, this was really tough for us to read through and to talk about. So we've tried to, water it down a bit so it isn't so chilling because it gets a lot worse than what we're about to say. This comes from the Philadelphia Grand Jury report talking about the sex abuse by the clergy here. It says that, quote, when they were both naked, the priest had Billy sit up on his lap and kissed his neck and back while saying to him that God loved him and everything was going to be okay. You know, Seth, the sex abuse is horrific, but then when you read that they're saying that God is okay with this, it's gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it's very, very sad, and to fully comprehend that this one young man, Billy, was raped and sodomized by two priests and his sixth grade school teacher, who evidently shared with each other information about what they had done. It is gut-wrenching. It's very, very sad. And I couldn't listen to the reports from the investigation myself. So it was horrific, but it's something, of course, that this isn't a witch hunt into the Catholic Church. This isn't specific to that church. We have about 400 cases like this a year, but this is just about evil men being held accountable for their criminal behavior.
And let's talk about what happens to these kids. As you continued to interview and talk with Billy, the report goes on to say that Billy began to smoke marijuana at the age of 11. By the time Billy was in high school, he was abusing prescription painkillers, and eventually he graduated to heroin. How did the parents react to this, Seth? And how is Billy doing now?
That's a very good question. And his parents immediately noticed a change in his behavior after he'd been raped and sodomized by the two priests during the school year. They took him away for the summer, thinking that was going to help his spirits, and it was when he returned that his sixth grade teacher drove him off to a park and raped him and forced him to walk home. They really began noticing a change in his behavior. They took him to the doctor. He wasn't eating. He would throw up. Then that led later on to Great Depression and drug addiction. What many victims of sexual abuse, be they men or women, of course, try to repress what happened, try not to talk about it. And they, like a corkscrew, they just pop somehow because of the pressure. And Billy and Mark and many others, it leads them to lives of drug addiction to try to heal themselves. And so it was very fortunate for Billy, the one young man who referred to as Billy, who was raped by the two priests and his school teacher, that it was during while he was in rehab that he was able to first talk about the fact that he'd been sexually abused as a child. And that is what led us to this grand jury investigation.
And just quickly, Seth, before I let you go, could this case be a turning point? Because not only does it talk about the abuse by clergy, but it talks about the Monsignor Lynn, who was assigned to investigate this, and how for years he ignored it and shoved it under the table. It adds a whole different level to how these men need to be held accountable. So could your case impact how investigations go on from this point?
Yes, this case is precedent-setting in that we are holding accountable a person who did not personally abused the children, but that Monsignor Lynn was responsible for investigating these cases. He had credible evidence that 2 of these priests had previously molested children, yet he did not follow through on the treatment they were supposed to get. He also then reassigned them to parishes, did not tell the new pastors, did not tell the new principals where they were assigned, and put them in proximity to reoffend other children, and these men, 2 of them did, in fact, reoffend. That's how we had the rape of Billy and the rape of Mark. And so because of that, I hope this is a clarion call for all of those that have responsibility of protecting children, be they in camps and schools and churches, that you have to do your job. And if you don't, and if you knowingly and willingly just allow pedophiles to continue, you're going to be held accountable.
And I just don't understand how someone could do that. Philly DA Seth Williams will keep following the story, and sure appreciate all the work you're putting into this, Seth. Thanks so much.
Thank you.